Good evening. I call to order this regular meeting of the Minnehaha County Board of Adjustments and will begin with a few introductory comments. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, please make sure that all cell phones are turned off. Please note that tonight's Planning Commission meeting will be rebroadcast via CityLink and posted on www.minnehahacounty.org site for viewing by the general public. The Planning Commission convenes as a Zoning Board of Adjustment to consider variance applications and administrative appeals. For these items, we will follow our normal hearing procedure by requesting planning staff to present a report on each item and then request the petitioner to come to the podium and make a statement or answer any questions. Anyone from the audience wishing to address the item shall be recognized by the chair, move to the podium, and state your name and address for the record. The Board of Adjustment will then discuss the matter and take appropriate action. Actions taken by the Board of Adjustments are considered final. First on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Next, we will consider item number 1, which is the minutes from the August 26, 2019 Zoning Board of Adjustments meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Jeff Barth, a second by Mike Ralston. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to item number 2. It's a variance of 21-02 to reduce the required rear yard setback from 30 feet to 22 feet and the required side yard setback from 7 feet to 4.5 feet for a new single-family dwelling on the property legally described as Tract 3, Lot 8A, Voigt subdivision, and there is the exception of the north 25.3 feet. That's the end of the exception, southwest quarter, section 21, township 101 north, range 51 west. That is in Wall Lake Township. Petitioner is Jeff Martins. He's also the property owner. This is along the west shore of Wall Lake. Kevin?
Good evening, Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. This first item is a variance request to reduce the rear and side yard setbacks on this property as described. The property is located on West Shore Place of Wall Lake. The petitioner has submitted a detailed site plan of the property, and I'll kind of jump right to that. It's hard to read because it's so small, but the petitioner is requesting 4.5 feet for the new setback to be 4.5 feet, a reduction from 7 feet, and then a rear yard setback of 22 feet, which is a reduction from 30 feet requirement. And you can see it on that setback map. If you look on that map there, you can see that there's like a dotted line in the inside portion of the property. That is the buildable area without any setback reductions. The variance request is on has several different criteria that you're supposed to cover as a Board of Adjustment. I'll kind of cover through the highlights of that. Criteria A, the particular physical surroundings of the shape or topographical conditions of the specific property involved would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from mere inconvenience if there's a strict letter of regulations that were carried out. As staff has reviewed this variance request is on a very small property, approximately 6,000 square feet in size. Just for reference, that in rural residential zone property anywhere else, a newly platted one would require, even when connected to sanitary sewer, would still require 20,000 square feet of size. And a minimum lot width of 125 feet, and this lot is only 50 feet wide, which makes a hardship to build a standard size structure on the property. The B, conditions upon which the application for a variance is based would not be applicable or generally to other property within the same zoning classification or other properties substantially similar use. This property is admittedly similar to other properties on West Shore Place. Many of the lots were platted prior to subdivision ordinance, but it is not generally applicable to rural residential throughout the county. Because There should also be noted that since 2014, 2 other variance requests have been made throughout Wall Lake area, and this was to front and rear yard setbacks. So this is more common in Wall Lake area. Letter C, the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area in which the property is located. This is probably the criteria that I'll highlight the most because I spoke with the building inspector regarding the setback reduction, and he did note that there is a building code requirement for firewall separation for structures that are 10 feet apart or closer. So this is where staff is recommending that the setback not be reduced to less than 5 feet to the property line, especially to the south, which has a developable lot, in order to maintain 10 feet of separation if the lot to the south receives the same variance request. That being said, this is not part of the staff report, but if we were to say grant the full setback request, we could also add a condition, say, to require the firewall separation on that south side of the house to allow the future construction of the whatever potential house to the south would be, so both houses would have the same restrictions. Letter D, the proposed variance will not unreasonably impair an adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property, increase the congestion on public streets, and increase the danger of fire and danger of public safety, or diminish or impair the property values within the area. This is one dwelling that's replacing another. This new dwelling is just a little bit bigger than the existing one, and it will not impair any light or air. E, because of the circumstances or conditions that no possibility of the property can be developed in strict conformity with the provisions of the zoning regulations, and that the authorization of variance is therefore necessary and to enable the reasonable use of the property. Staff finds that the strict conformity of the zoning regulations would create a situation where the modern building design with an attached garage would not be able to be built on this site. And I do reference that the house that's being requested is just over 1,300 square feet in the main floor, and the average house size built in 2019 has over 2,000 square feet of building space. So this is already a small house than normal. And then letter F, the variance is authorized will represent a minimum variance that will afford a reasonable relief that will represent the least modification desirable of the zoning regulations. And this goes again that staff is recommending a 5-foot variance on the side yards. The site plan does show that the requested variance will make the house sit on the property at equal distance from both property lines to the north and to the south. And so it is the minimum that they could do with their current house plans. The recommendation, staff does recommend approval of the variance 2102 to reduce the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 22 feet, and to reduce the side yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet. And that is a ½ a foot less than the requested amount. I can go through a couple of the photos here. You can see that this is looking down the driveway to the current house structure there. It's hard to tell where one property begins and the next one ends in Wall Lake. But you can see that where the shoreline begins, and the new house is not going to be too different setback from the lake as the current house. There's down the north property line. I'm not aware of where that shed sits on the properties between if it's on the petitioner's property or the neighboring property. I am not aware where that shed sits. Oops. And then there's down the road, West Shore Place. So I'll bring it back to the site plan, and I will take any questions.
Any questions for him? Guess not at this time. Is the petitioner here? Will you please step forward and state your name and address?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Martins. Myself and my wife requested the variance for this. Our current address is 1604 East Keystone Drive in Brandon. The place we're at now out on the lake is a seasonal place. It's not something we can winter through, and we were just looking to make it something that's we can live in South Dakota throughout the season, because we're looking to get down to one place now. But I also brought a site plan that I can hand around if anyone wants to look at it, that has a site plan like the one above with the existing cabin that's on the lake. And then I don't have copies of this, but I made one superimposed over the other, show the difference. And we tried to tuck it in there as best we can, and the lot is actually narrows as it goes away from the lake. So when we start, if this is approved at the back side of it, we'll be well over the 5 foot that they recommended, but it does narrow. So as it gets closer to the road, we go just under. So that's why the original request for variance was at 4.5 on each side, just so it gave us a cushion. If you look on the site plan, it shows that at the farthest most away from the lake part of the thing, we get down to 4 foot, 0.71 feet. So it's just under the 5 feet, but that's trying to give both neighbors the benefit of the doubt. We squeezed it right in the middle, and then now the lot narrows as it runs away from the lake. It's a real narrow lot to begin with, and then it's irregularly shaped also. So anyone have any questions for me?
Commissioners? Guess not at this time.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else here in the room that cares to speak to this item? I have a question for you, Kevin. Is the site plan that he was talking about, is that the same one that we have?
Can I see that?
That was my question.
This is the one you superimposed, and the site plan with the new one is the same one that's on the screen. The one that I brought in, right? This is what I brought in. The back page is the existing cabin,
Okay.
and that's the one imposed over the other.
Okay. All right. We'll see if I can describe this. And maybe we will end up handing this around, but you'll see that in the pink outline is the new structure, and then there's a yellow outline, which is the old. And the yellow outline just barely fits in the current building envelope that's allowed. And then the pink line outline barely exceeds it. So I'll give this to you to hand through.
Madam Chair, I have a
Becky,
question.
go ahead.
So if we were to grant this in consideration of what the fire code guidelines are, we would need to put a restriction or something on it that indicates that they and the properties neighboring on either side would need to do something in addition for fire code?
That is a staff opinion, I guess. If you were to grant this as it is, and then the next house is built to the required setbacks, there would not be anything necessary. It's as if you were to require or have setback reductions on the next house, which may be necessary again because of the narrow lots. That reduction may make it so that these structures are closer than 10 feet apart, if that's where the 5 feet comes into. Then we can reduce both properties to 5 feet. What they have listed on the site plan is, I think it's 4.71 feet, so it is very close to 5 feet. The 5.5 feet is, like he said, a buffer, so that way if it gets built a little bit closer, a little bit further on build day, it still works.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin? Jeff?
Kevin, so notice was sent out to all the neighbors, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else care to speak to this item? I'll close the floor. Commissioners?
Madam Chair? Inasmuch as none of the neighbors decided to come and fight about it, I think we should allow it to go forward. So I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it. And I would note that on the map that we have, the properties on either side appear to be quite a bit wider. So I don't know that those two properties on either side would face the same challenges.
Okay.
So I second.
I would just like a clarification, that is that with staff recommendation or the requested 4.5 feet?
Could you say that again?
Is your motion to approve staff recommendation of 5 feet or the petitioner requested 4.5 feet?
All right, petitioner's request, I believe.
That's my second.
Okay. I have a motion and second to approve variance 21-02. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Any old business? No new business? A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes.